Good morning, you guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new, welcome. My name is Makamohelo, and in this video I'll be discussing how my apartment got sold in less than a month, as well as providing some helpful tips for buyers and sellers. So let's get into it. So, to provide some context, in 2019, I purchased my first ever sectional titled townhouse in Pretoria East. At the time, I was 3.5 years into a fairly stable job, and I felt grown. I felt ready to kind of dip my toe into the property pool, if you will. And so what sold this particular property for me was the fact that it was in a really good area. It was literally 15 minutes from work. It had walkable streets. Picture young families walking their dogs in the afternoons, runners, cyclists. It provided a very homely feel, and it was close to all amenities. So it was a really attractive idea for me. It was close to well-known shopping centers such as Woodlands. Parkview was also down the road, and Mainland Mall was 15 minutes away. And so I felt it was a really good buy. It was in a secure complex, lock up and go, in a cul-de-sac. So security-wise, for a young, single at the time, working professional, it made sense for me to purchase that property. And so I purchased that property in October of 2019, and yeah, I really enjoyed my time living there. It was quiet, it was safe, and it really supported my lifestyle at the time. It was great for me because I traveled a lot for work, so the lock up and go aspect was great, and I really enjoyed living there. I enjoyed the walkable streets. I enjoyed being able to jog and walk in the afternoons, and yeah, it was lovely. And so the idea was to kind of live there and hold on to the property for, future returns. But in 2020, I met my husband, and well, at the time he wasn't my husband. I met my then partner, and we started dating, and 2 years later we got married in 2022. And so my husband works in Joburg and I work in Pretoria. And so the traveling became a bit much for him, because our initial thought was that we'll live here for a couple of months while we figure out, what our next step is in terms of our living situation. And so we decided that just for our sanity, we needed to find a place that was kind of more central and in between for the both of us in terms of work. And so we moved and we settled in Midrand. And so in 2023, we decided to purchase a property in Midrand and then rent out my townhouse in Pretoria East. I found a managing agent to kind of help me manage this whole process, and for me it really worked out, and is a pro tip for anyone who's considering renting out their property, particularly if you are a first-time landlord, if you will. Managing agents help you kind of weed out good and bad tenants, and they're able to kind of look out for any red flags with regards to tenants that you may not necessarily be aware of as a first-time landlord. And so this particular managing agent lived in the complex, which was another plus for me. So he was privy to kind of the nitty-gritties of living in the complex. He was able to run credit checks for me and find me really good tenants. And so for the last 2 years or so, I've had tenants in my property in Pretoria, and it's been really good. These are tenants who there's been no complaints about them in the complex. They pay their rent on time, and I also kind of hold up the other end of my bargain by trying my best to be a good landlord, responding to any complaints about repairs that need to be made, keeping up the maintenance of the property as well, to kind of make sure that they also enjoy living there and really get value for their money. And so at the beginning of this year, 2025, my husband and I, like most couples, I'm assuming, sat down and laid out our corporate and individual goals for ourselves and for our family. So some of these goals needed us to have a bit more financial muscle, if you will, and so selling made sense to me. Part of the initial rental agreement with the rental agency that I had was that should I ever consider selling my property, they would kind of have first right of sale, if you will. So that means that they would be the kind of first agency to kind of try and sell my property on my behalf. And so because it's a good agency and I've had a good relationship with them, I was happy with this agreement, and I kind of felt like at least it's people that I know and I'm comfortable with and I've dealt with for the last 2 years. And so in January of this year, I approached the agency to conclude a sales agreement with them in order for them to be the agency that's going to market and try and sell my property on my behalf. We listed my property on the 16th of January, and on the 15th of February, I got the great news that we had received a signed offer to purchase. And so this means that this was less than a month after we listed that my property actually got sold. It is amazing what a fresh coat of paint can do, what changing light fixtures can do, what just maintaining and making your property look aesthetic can do for you as a seller. The aesthetics of your property matter. When someone walks in, how do they feel when they look at your property? Do they feel like they can make it a home? Is it warm and cozy? Is it cluttered and messy? Is it dark and cold? These things matter. My tip is that try and keep up the maintenance of your property. It does not have to be expensive, but keeping up maintenance on your property really increases the returns and also just increases the aesthetic look of your property. It helps you enjoy living there. It helps whoever lives there enjoy living there. So in terms of the process from the seller's perspective, what initially happens is that the seller concludes what is known as a sales agreement with the estate agent. Some of the crucial aspects of the sales agreement is deciding whether or not you want to give your estate agent sole mandate or making the agreement an open mandate. A sole mandate means that the agency is contracted to be the only agency responsible for selling your property. This means that the agent will work on trying to get you the best deal because they are the only agent kind of working on selling your property. They also tend to invest more in marketing your property and getting the word out there that there is a property for sale. Open mandate means that there are multiple estate agents working on the deal. So multiple estate agents are trying to sell you your property. This might increase the reach because they might market your property to more people across different platforms, and more people are likely to see that your property is for sale. But the one drawback with this is that the estate agents will be working to beat each other to the punch more so than getting you the best deal possible. So they'll all be kind of working to get a deal on the table, even if it's not necessarily the best deal for you. For the seller, there are three main costs. There's the cost of compliance certificates, the costs of rates clearance, and the cost of levies clearance. In terms of the compliance certificates, the most commonly known one is the electrical compliance certificate. This involves a qualified and registered electrician coming out to your property, testing that all the electrical outlets work, and then certifying your property as compliant. So this comes with a cost, and generally the cost ranges depending on the electrician that you use. The cost will range from about 1,500 Rand to about 2,000 Rand. And so this is a cost that is on the seller to ensure that provide an electrical compliance certificate to say that my property is compliant, everything works and is in order. In terms of the rates, it is expected when the offer to purchase is signed by both the seller and the buyer that the seller then settles or obtains rates clearance figures from the local municipality. This is normally 3 months worth of rates that the seller must pay, and this kind of covers the process while the property is being registered. Generally, the home buying, home selling process takes about 3 months, and the rates clearance figures cover this period whilst the property is undergoing transfer. Likewise, the levies also need to be paid up for about a period of 3 months and up to date while the property is undergoing transfer, and these are normally obtained from your body corporate or your homeowners association. In the home buying, home selling process, there are two sets of lawyers that are involved in the process. They are transferring attorneys and they are bond registration attorneys. Transferring attorneys are normally appointed by the seller, and the registering attorneys are appointed by the home buyer's bank. They are responsible for then ensuring the transfer of the property, and the fees related to these two sets of lawyers are payable by the buyer. Property 24 has a great calculator on their website that is normally able to calculate how much a person can expect to pay for registration and transferring fees. These are determined by the property's purchase price, and if you're ever curious, this is not a sponsored video, but if you're curious, head over to Property 24's website, type in the property that you're looking at listing price, and you're able to see potentially how much you could expect to pay in bond registration costs and bond transfer costs. So in terms of the process from the buyer's perspective, you go on Property 24 or Private Property or one of these other listing platforms. You see your dream house that has everything you could ever want in a property, and you contact the agent for a viewing. Important things to note when you're going for a viewing: it's important to ask about latent and patent defects. So latent defects are those defects that are not immediately visible within the property. So these might be issues that are not, you don't see immediately when you walk into the property, but may become issues further down the line. It is legally binding on the seller to mention should the property have any latent defects. Patent defects include things that you can immediately see when you walk into the property. These include broken windows, missing tiles, cracks on the walls. It is important to ask about these and find out whether the buyer would potentially be willing to make any repairs in order for you to be comfortable and happy to purchase the property. Do not be scared to advocate for yourself when you are purchasing property. And it is also important to be able to negotiate. Do not be scared to negotiate. A listing price is kind of a wish figure, if you will, that a seller would like to get, but we're often aware, particularly depending on how the economy is going, that you might not necessarily get what you're asking for, and that's okay. Do not be scared to negotiate. Do not be scared to use latent defects in the property as a negotiating tool. So if the kitchen is particularly old and needs to be renovated, do not be scared to use the cost of renovating the kitchen as a negotiating tool. Do not be scared to use the cost of renovating the bathrooms as a negotiating tool. Negotiate. The seller is sometimes just happy to have you there as well and interested, and will more than likely be willing to listen to fair negotiated offers as well. Buying property is often a very emotional experience, but try and keep a level head. It's very easy to run away mentally in terms of the property and what it looks like, and picturing yourself already there and all the things that you're gonna do and but it's so important to kind of have a mental checklist of what you're looking for in a property. Have a mental checklist of what you need from the property in order to support your lifestyle, but also be future viewing in terms of what you need the property to do for you in the now and in the future. Does it need to be close to the highway? Does it need to be in a cul-de-sac in a quiet street? Does it need to be a standalone property? Does it need to be in a complex? What kind of property would support your now and your future self? Because property is a long-term game. Often, bonds range from 20 years to 30 years. So if you think about it in that sense, you need a property that kind of supports you in the now and in the future. If you're not someone who's planning to kind of, move quite quickly or want to settle in an area long term. As a buyer, it's also important and recommended to request the latest complex financials to see if the complex is being run properly. Don't be scared to request the latest rates statement, the latest levy statements, to kind of see what the whole financial landscape looks like with regards to the property. Remember, you're not just paying an installment every month in the form of your bond, but you also have additional costs when it comes to owning property. If you're in a complex, you're looking at levies every month. You're also looking at rates, municipal rates, as well as an additional cost to the property. So it's important for you to be mindful of these and kind of work these into your total household budget in terms of, am I able to afford this property or not? In terms of also viewing the property, do not be scared to ask for a second viewing, to come back perhaps with an electrician or a building engineer if you can, to kind of have a look at the property from a professional perspective and see if you are looking at a good property or looking at a future headache. So don't be scared to advocate for yourself at any time in the process. Also, don't be scared to walk away should you feel like there's undue pressure from the agent or the owner, or if there's things perhaps that they're not willing to disclose or are very vague on. Don't save yourself the headache. Be willing to walk away, be very level-headed, and just do your research. As a home buyer, your credit score is important. I am an advocate of living within your means, and so it is important to be mindful of what the totality of your finances looks like, particularly when you're looking to purchase a bonded property. In the process as a buyer, you will be expected to provide a list of your income and expenses, as well as pay slips and bank statements for the banks to kind of have a good idea of your financial landscape. Are you able to afford this property or not? And so it is important for you to be able to kind of do a personal financial audit, if you will, of your finances and see if you're able to afford this property or not. To pay a deposit or not to pay a deposit? I am pro deposit. For me, I feel like a deposit is a good way to reduce your monthly installment. A significant deposit, or at least a good deposit, is a good way to reduce your installment. Some banks have a function where it can actually be put into your home loan account as an amount that you're able to access should you need it, which is a good way to help with any repairs on the property that you might need or any emergencies that you might encounter during your home ownership. So for me, a deposit is a good idea. I advocate a deposit, and I think it provides a little bit of wiggle room in terms of, you being able to perhaps sell quicker than you anticipated should you need to. And so I am very pro deposit in that sense. So once all the documents are signed from both the buyer and the seller, rates clearance certificates are in, clearance figures are in, the bank has approved the buyer's loan, and everything is on track, the attorneys facilitate the property transfer process with the deeds office. So this involves them then taking the documents to the deeds office to facilitate the transfer of the property. As mentioned, the home buying, home selling process, particularly transferring the property into the buyer's name, takes about 3 months. Various factors can speed up or slow down this process. This includes things such as the buyer perhaps struggling to get a bond with the banks, or if the seller has outstanding levies, or their rates are in arrears on the property. These are some of the factors that can slow down or speed up the process. In my particular situation, what has sped up the process significantly for me is that the buyer, it was a cash offer, and so she did not need to approach the banks for a loan. She could provide the capital upfront, which significantly sped up the property transfer process. This was really and truly an answered prayer for me this year. I remember being so anxious praying about this at the beginning of the year and just praying that, Lord, can this be a fast and quick sale with fair terms? And the Lord answered my prayer. And I really hope that you found this video helpful. Should you have any questions, comments, please list them below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I did feel like it was a bit chaotic, but thank you for bearing with me. Should you have found it useful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.